Okay, so let's get started. So I would like to say a few words about the motivation for us to do this webinar. So this is the 11th time that we are doing it, and we are part of the initiative called Data Career from the AI Guild. And here we have a quote that basically represents that everyone in the field can improve. And we are still a young field, so we are considered AI talents. And just because this is still the beginning of the field itself of data, for 4 years of experience, it's already enough to become a senior person in AI, or even 5 years of experience to lead an institute. So we need to, of course, keep improving our skills. And this is what is the, let's say, impacting factor on one's career. So this is why we are going to show you a bit more of the different skills or the different roles that you can choose from to be developing your career in data. Then we have here a slide about Irena. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. And yeah, thank you for joining us to today's webinar. My name is Irena Bojarovska, and yeah, I'm happy to co-host this webinar together with Dânia already for quite a while. I am working as a data scientist at Zalando currently in the marketing analytics applied science team. And I did my PhD here in TU Berlin. So here for us, I know that meanwhile there are people joining from all over the world. But yeah, so I'm happy to be part of the AI Guild and of the various initiatives that we have. And I'm happy also to answer any questions that you have, including the career path. I moved from data analyst to data scientist. I moved also from academia to industry, and yeah, everything related. So welcome again, and happy to hear all your questions.
Thank you, Irena. Yes, there's also a slide about me. So I am a founding member at the AI Guild. I was working as a data scientist, mostly focused on machine learning models for predictive analytics. And I was also teaching at a data science bootcamp in Berlin. I started my career in 2012 after finishing my bachelor's. And I also started as an analyst and then moved to become a data scientist. And also, maybe you can tell us a little bit about you. So I'm going to start here a survey. So it's anonymous. And you can let us know like 3 questions that we have here: where you are, how many years of experience you have, and which is the role that you're most interested in. So that will also help us to get to know a little bit more about you and hopefully also direct our conversation. Yeah, so while you answer that, let me share a little bit of what we have planned for today. So we have 1.5 hours overall together, and we will start sharing a bit about the AI Guild initiative on advancing careers. Then I can share a bit about each of the different roles. We talk about specifically the data scientist, data analyst, and data engineer in details. Then we can discuss the different data career journeys between Irena and me. And throughout this, you are welcome to send your questions. Finally, to wrap it up, before leaving, we can share some orientations on the market if you're looking for your next job, first job or next job. Okay, so maybe there was already enough time to answer the questions. I will finish the survey and let's take a look at the results. Do you see? I hope you can see also I shared the results. So we see, yeah. We see here some participants from Berlin and Germany, also some others from another place in Europe. but the majority is from another place in the world. So if you like, let us know in the chat where you're talking or where you're connecting from. How many years of experience in a data role? The majority is pretty young, less than 1 year. And we have here interesting, mostly in data scientist, but also in data analyst and data engineer, and also other. So if you would like to let us know which is the other one, so we can also address it, and we are always updating the slides. So maybe this is also for us to update some other new role. Yes, nice. Amir is from Nigeria. Welcome. Yes, 5 years as data analyst. Nice. Okay, so we are presenting, but as I mentioned, if you have any questions or observations, feel free to type it in the chat at any time and we will read them and address it. So I will kick off about the data career roles. Yeah, sorry, Irena. This is...
Yes. So this is a slide, again, a kind of motivational slide. It's what motivated us to do the webinar and what we try to explain, share, discuss during the sessions that we have. This is something that we have noticed throughout our experience, but also from the other AI Guild members. What we notice in the data science career role is that usually to find the first or maybe even the second role takes quite a lot of time. So sometimes more than 6 months. And I think this first step, how do I get in there? It's sometimes the hardest. And I think that's what we see also in the survey, is that many of you are just stepping into the field. So we can say that we feel you if you have some troubles and difficulties getting into the field. This is more the average than the so to say the outlier. So yeah, that's how it is, and we can also discuss why it is like this, but this is what we observe. And another question or behavior that we notice is that if someone is interested in trying out different roles, let's say data scientist, data analyst, engineer, then changing inside one company, it's often much easier than finding a new role in another company, because that again will count as a first search of that job. And as I already said, this might be difficult. Inside, it's much easier. And then another thing, because I think we as a, if like I count myself as a mathematician, in order to discuss one thing or object, we have to agree first on the definitions, right? So if you want to discuss about the various data career roles, we have to agree, okay, how do we define data analyst, data scientist, data engineer? And actually, this is not that straightforward, and maybe we can do it, but it doesn't mean that the companies who are looking for new joiners have the same definitions as we do. So this is a big problem, and sometimes you have to be careful when you are looking at the various job descriptions, that you kind of read between the lines and understand, okay, not based only on the title, but based on the description, what is actually meant. And finally, what is written, it still might not be the whole truth. It's often so that, especially in this field and in those job advertisement, that what's written on the paper is more like a wish list than the reality. And then when you end up at the place and start your work, you figure out that actually I don't know, like 60 or 70% of the job is not what was written there, and it's maybe a bit, I don't want to call it boring, but maybe less than what you have expected. So this is another thing that one has to be aware of, and maybe use the opportunity of the interviews and so on to have more questions and to figure out for yourself, how is it actually in reality? So apart from this, now we can go to the next slide. What we can see is that although we are saying all the time, okay, these are new roles, this is a new thing in the market, it's already not new, so to say, because it's been there already for a while. And we see that actually the roles, they do tailor little by little, and they get specified. And then moreover, we already have different specialization. There are different bachelor and master programs in the particular field, let's say, of data science. So one can come up also on the market as a qualified data scientist, let's say, by degree, although previously was not the case most of the time. And also, I would say that also in the future, I don't think that this is something that one necessarily has to have. And we at the AI Guild, and we'll speak about at the end, also try to tackle this problem and bring a kind of like a standard for everyone that the companies can look upon. And then what is very important is when one think about data science, AI, machine learning, we always think about all these model and complex tools that we can use. This is all good, but what one needs in industry inevitably is the domain expertise. And this is something that is very important, and where one can really show that you can apply the complex tool that you know or that you have mastered correctly only if you have a high domain expertise. And this is why this is highly valuable. And that's why there are people who are already not just expert in one field in terms of machine learning, let's call it, but in terms of business, let's say e-commerce, or maybe 3D modeling or computer vision for whatever, face recognition. So really tailored to the domain of the particular industry. And another thing that we also observe is this proof of concept. It's kind of ending, and now more and more companies are putting their projects in production. The machine learning models are deployed, they are used, and most importantly, actions are taken based on those results. So I think this is the goal of every company who wants to have experts in the field, to be data driven and to make a business decision based on facts and based on data, so to say, and not on a feeling. And this is great that people can contribute to this. And yeah, the focus on deployment is already set, because that's the second step after the proof of concept phase has passed. And what we at the AI Guild try to cover is actually everything that I spoke about. So we see the people and their career path in the AI as going on a step on stepping stairs and going higher. And for every part of your journey, we offer some opportunities. So at the beginning, when you are just searching for your first roles, the most important thing starts with the CV, right? The checks, what should I include, what I shouldn't include, what's the kind of the standard for a CV in a data science world. So we have programs on validating the CV. Then the competency profile. Again, this is once you are inside, once you are in, so to say, the machine, how do you move forward? How you can go to a more senior role? How can you switch from one role to the other? So everything that is somehow inside this whole bucket of possibilities in the data science world. And finally, once you have, let's say, 3 to 5 years of experience, as Dânia said at the beginning, it's very fairly easy, maybe compared to other fields, to go even further, to push even further and be successful. And here, what one needs maybe is some kind of acknowledgement and some kind of standard, some kind of how to say, proof for being an expert, if I can call it like this, something that the AI Guild also contributed to, and that is the accreditation. So an accredited data scientist or accredited data analyst, engineer can become any one of you who have the reached the particular expectations and passed the procedure of the AI Guild, and we will come to this again at the end. But most important is that we want to say that every stage of the career requires, or maybe not requires, but could profit from some helpful, so to say, tools, some helpful networking, some helpful workshops, and this is why we are also here today to share our knowledge with you and to answer any questions that you might have.
Yes, perfect, Irena. Yes, I just want to mention, maybe I type it in the chat, those services that we have listed here, the validated CP, the competency profile, and the accreditation, they are on the website. So maybe I type it here, the datacareer.eu. If you want to check them out, please do. And you can also write me on LinkedIn and we can talk about them. So the idea here is that we have those services that we developed, and more than 100 different practitioners in data have benefited from this, depending on the level they were in their careers. And today we are here to talk about the different roles that would apply to any of those. And yeah, the chance here is to really discuss any specific questions that you have. So please let us know what are your questions or what are the situations that you're facing. We will try our best to answer and help you. Oh yes, we still have this one slide about the opportunities for an AI Guild member. So first of all, I want to say that if you are not yet a member of the AI Guild, you can join here. Here I have the website. Our community is free of charge, so you can become a member for free, and you have all those opportunities available for you. For example, one here is to be the special guest of an event like this that we run via Zoom, but you can also host your own event like some members have. You can join the career development program that we are running, or you can also become an accredited expert. So if you have more than 4 years of experience in the field, like Irena have joined the accreditation, you can become one of the names listed here. We have here the first question for you, Irena. You mentioned shortly that it is quite difficult to get your first role in data. Can you elaborate on it? Why stepping on the market is so difficult? If you have some ideas on how to overcome that challenge as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, this is a very good question, and I'm sure that many of you have this. I think that for the first question is why is it so difficult? So I think here the answer is maybe quite straightforward. I think that it is because the industry, for some reason, always prefer people with experience, and that means that it's just that people who already have worked before are always kind of more desired than those that don't have experience, especially because if you just view the job description, so very rarely or less often there are job advertisement directly for junior, let's say, data scientist or data analyst, where it's explicitly written that it's fine that they have 0 years of experience. So these opportunities are less, so that's why it means that more people are competing for them. And on the other hand, the other positions where it's written few years of experience or something like this, then you compete with the ones who already have experience, and again the competition is higher. So I think first of all it's about the competition, and second, how to overcome this challenge. I think there is no one single answer to this question. So I think let's let me say two things, because I think there are many things that one can give as an advice, but maybe two things. One is, and I speak from my experience, one is never give up and maybe apply more than less. That means give yourself a chance. Sometimes it's about writing to the right position for you in the right time, and sometimes maybe one judges too strictly, oh, maybe this is not for me, or maybe this is not, maybe they won't take me, or something like this, and then you cut the possibilities. Because, for example, for me, it was also difficult, and I got my first position somehow by chance, because I applied for another one. It was, I will speak about them in a minute, but I applied for something called flight analyst. I didn't even know what's this. So I applied for this, and then when the head of the whole department saw my CV, he said, okay, this is not really for you, but we have another position. It's still not outside. It will be open only next week, and we are ready to interview for you, for it. So that means that I was ahead of everyone. The position was not outside yet, and they decided to interview me. And they were fair enough that when I passed good, they said, okay, no need to put this advertisement online at all. We just take Irena. So this was a nice kind of chance that I took it by applying to something random. So I don't think that this is maybe the recipe, but sometimes it can work. And another thing I think is networking. And here the one step is you already did it to come here. I think although juniors are maybe put in a less comfortable position, still a recommendation is an important thing. And I think if you have a good network, and then you talk to people and you kind of see which company is working what, you find people that are working in those teams, and someone can recommend you, and then it's possible. Because I think at the end, the idea to me comes to finding a person who trusts you, that you are able to learn. Because as we saw at the very beginning, it's all about learning. And of course, even though you don't have experience, if you are smart enough and you are encouraged, and you are how's it called, motivated enough, then you will learn, and you will learn fast, and sometimes even faster than somebody who is there already for 5 years. So I think you just need to find the person who trusts you. And of course, if somebody is giving a recommendation, then it's easier to put trust on that person, and that might help. So
yes,
yeah,
agreed. Pretty much the first job is really about, on the other side, they see your potential, you know. Ludmila, would you like to contribute, say something?
Yes, hi. Hi everyone. Since we are talking about the first job, I just basically quickly wanted to share my own experience because I came from a different background and I've been working in data since 1.5 years now. And from my experience, my advice would be like get a role that is pretty close to data. Like in my case, it was performance marketing. And then basically in this role, do tasks that like do analytical tasks, because then you can already put them on your CV. And like, even if you haven't worked in an analyst, like in my case, it's an analyst role. So even if you haven't worked as an analyst before, you will already have on your CV, like I did this analysis and this analysis using these and these tools. And this pretty much like made me fit for an analytical role elsewhere. So I think it's a good way in my own experience, and I just wanted to share it with the others.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing.
A lot. Yeah, I think this is great, and I think it's similarly to what me and Dânia also did, because I think, for example, to step in a first role and directly a data scientist, so this is quite challenging, and it's maybe even harder. So if you see this is harder, okay, then you go like kind of step back, although these two roles are not necessarily that one is below the other, but you start from small. It's the same case for me. I started as a business analyst, so really then I show, okay, I can do more. So I can do not only descriptive analytics but also predictive, and then you do step by step, and people will see your as I said, motivation and your skills, and it will be easier to move forward.
Yes, and just before moving on to talk more about each of the roles, I would like to leave two resources with you if you're looking for jobs. One is a newsletter. It's called Find a Job with Any. I can find the link and share it with you in a few moments. And the other one is some of the interviews that we are doing at the AI Guild LinkedIn page. So Annie from the Find a Job with Annie, we interviewed her and she shared the tips. So she is a recruiter working for startups mostly and finding roles in tech. So not only in data, but in tech in general. And she shared what can one do to, especially if you're looking for a first job, what can you do to be different so that your CV is not just one more CV from all the applications that she receives. And recently, we also had a chance to talk to someone that is hiring specifically for computer vision roles. And it's again from observing this trend on the market that now there are a lot of special kind of needs from business and therefore special roles that emerge, not generic data scientists, but more specifically, for example, machine learning engineer or computer vision engineer. And then he's also sharing tips on his side from what companies need and what kind of things you can do to, one, get your CV noticed, so you get a call from the recruiter, but on the second step, to then pass the interview with the recruiter and with the hiring manager. So I would recommend you to watch those because it can be quite insightful. And the third thing that I would like to say is that practice makes it better. So if you're looking for a job, the more you can really put yourself out there and apply and have those conversations, the easier it will get for you also to learn how you can present yourself and how you can answer questions. Yes, so I will start now with explaining about the different roles, right? So here I have
just a question. So I just want to ask you if Ludmila wanted to say something or if it was a raised hand without putting it down.
No, actually, I don't know, that somehow stayed on the picture.
Okay, no problem.
So, no, but thank you.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yes, okay. So what I have here is a landscape of productionizing machine learning. So different blocks, or we can look at it like a puzzle. So those are the different pieces of the puzzle that need to exist so you can put machine learning to production. And for each of the blocks, I have put their color that would represent what is the responsibility or the usual responsibility for each of the different 5 different data roles that are listed here. So for example, we can see here in blue the data engineer tasks, in yellow the data analyst tasks, in red data scientist, in gray is the machine learning engineer, and in green is the AI researcher. And what I mean by this is really to show an overview of how many different pieces we have on this puzzle and how they can be very different depending on which role you are focused on. So of course, this is not always like this well divided, let's say. There is some blurry aspects of this. So sometimes, let's say a data scientist can also do A/B testing, or I don't know, a data engineer can also do feature extraction. That can happen. But what I'm trying to do here is to make it as simple as possible and focusing on what is understood as the main responsibility for each of the different roles. So if we take a look a bit more in detail now for each of the roles, I have listed here for each of the 5 roles, what are the main tasks and what are the skills required to fulfill the task. So if we start from the data engineer, we had in the previous slide tasks about data collection and data ingestion. So for that, the main task is to really build and maintain the infrastructure and pipeline to collect, clean, and pre-process data. And the skills to do that are knowledge about distributed systems, databases, software engineering. In comparison, for the data analyst in yellow, we have here the major task is to understand both the business and the data to be able to report on what happens. Like Irena just described, it is descriptive analytics most of the time. Also statistics skills and dashboarding and visualization tools. Those are the most common skill sets required for the data analyst. Then if we look on the other side for the data scientist in red, we have here the main task is to understand the business case, build features using the data to train predictive models that address those cases. So similar to the data analyst, also again, statistics knowledge is required, but then programming languages like Python and R and SQL, and machine learning and deep learning techniques, depending on the level of the models that you're training. And then in gray, there is the machine learning engineer. So this is mostly picking up on the work from the data scientists is to optimize, deploy, and maintain models in production. So to do that, one is required to have software engineering skills, DevOps skills, and system architecture. The last one in the middle in green is the researcher. So the task for a researcher is to build new machine learning or deep learning algorithms and find custom scientific solutions. So this is really about extending the state of the art, and skills are related to research. So for example, presenting at conferences and writing publications. If we take a look at all of those tasks and skills, they have some relation or correlation. Even sometimes you have an overlap of skills. And this is why when we look at the different roles, we can also look at, we can also look at this as a team sport. So the full picture is requiring a variety of skills, and it is usual that you need more than one person to have the complete set of skills. And the idea of having a team with the different specialized roles is that each one complements the expertise of the others, so that you can deploy this end-to-end solution, like in the first slide. And also that in this way it's more organized and more efficient. And again, those are 5 roles that we are looking in more details, but there are other roles. For example, the computer vision engineer, NLP engineer, analytics engineer, or even a dedicated DevOps engineer. And besides the technical roles, there are also product and business roles that are frequently part of the team. So for example, a product owner or a product manager, domain expert, and potentially also new roles that are not even listed here. So the idea is that for each of those skills, we have potentially an overlap of what is required, or the knowledge that is required. And that's why we talk about the T-shaped skill set for data roles. So what it means is that we have different categories of skills in which we have the broad knowledge. So we know a little bit about different things, but then we also have the deep knowledge. So this is the other part that we focus on. So each specialized role would have a deep knowledge in a different area. So the areas that I listed here are the domain expertise. So for example, if you're working with marketing applications, or if you're working with images, or if you're working on the automotive industry, for example, you'll have that domain expertise. Then we have visualization and communication skills, the programming skills and the tools used. We have here the machine learning algorithms and statistical knowledge, and then software engineering and platforms, or even cloud knowledge. I think that was the last one. I'm wondering if you would like to ask any questions or to see one of the specific T-shaped skill sets. We can go more into details, but I think now it's time to also move forward and talk about the journey, the career journey. And again, we were scheduled today to have a guest talking about the machine learning engineer role. Unfortunately, due to medical reasons, he can't be online. We will see if we can reschedule this. And for now, yes, Irena and I will present our journeys. So I think the first one is you, Irena. Yes.
So yeah, I'm happy to share my journey because I think it's often very useful to just see how the other people got through their career or what it consisted of, and maybe you have then some questions for what you are interested in, what is important for you, maybe for me to speak about more, or maybe you have some questions how I did this or the other thing. So here I have my timeline since a very long time ago. So I finished high school in Macedonia, and yeah, I was going to math and programming competitions. We were learning to program in Pascal, just solving different math tasks. So then I kind of knew that I want to study mathematics and computer science. I decided to go for applied mathematics and computer science bachelor in Russia. This is where I finished. I finished my bachelor studies in Rostov and my master studies in St. Petersburg. And yeah, so the education there is such that you have a very broad spectrum of topics that you cover, really all kind of math that you can imagine, all kind of computer science thing that you can imagine, including yeah, parallel computing and databases and object-oriented, but also like writing your own parser, things like this. And then also a lot of applied mathematics in terms of like mechanics and kind of different simulations and numerical methods, optimization, and so on. So we learned a little bit of everything. And then I had two specializations in my bachelor studies. I was had my bachelor thesis on data safety, so cryptography and cyclic codes and these kind of things. And then in my master studies, I had my master thesis to be on digital signal processing. So this is already the first touch point for me with data. So data coming from signals. I was working on a thing called Pons transform, so similar to a Hadamard transform. This is a kind of the very basic wavelet that you can imagine used for some radar and applications. And then in my PhD, so I came to Berlin to do a PhD in math. I was part of the Berlin Mathematical School. I got a scholarship from them, and then I did my PhD within this school. I was part of the Applied Harmonic Analysis group with Professor Gita Coutinhoc at TU Berlin. And yeah, there we also did some cool things. So a lot of it was applied, but of course applied in terms of theoretically you can apply this. And at the end I was still like proving theorems and was not applying all of these things in real life, but it was still applied to mathematics, because like theoretical would be if I had studied whatever, like number theory or something like this, or non-Euclidean geometry, or I don't know. So this is what I studied. And here already, so I kind of had a feeling that I want to move to industry. I also wanted to stay in Berlin. I also wanted, I think one of my main kind of motivations to go to industry was to exactly see this application in place and really know that whatever I create will be actually used and will not just be the end paper that yeah, somehow I wanted to see impact of my work on a daily basis, and that's why I decided to go to industry. But here I already had the first trouble when I tried to find a job. It was not as easy as I could imagine. So I kind of had this background, and I had the connection with signal processing, with compress sensing. So if you know what compress sensing is, really like a L1 minimization with regularization. So I could argue that it's pure machine learning, but I didn't have the skills from a perspective of programming. So I think at those days when I was looking for a kind of data scientist roles, they were most software engineer who knows also enough mathematics to apply those machine learning models. And I was not a software engineer, and I was programming in MATLAB mainly during my PhD. And although I had background, so I had studied programming in like C, C++, and whatever, I haven't used that. So that's why I was not able to show any experience in this field. And yeah, as I said, I was applying here and there for a variety of positions that I like. Some of them were really interesting, but I didn't get through. And then I got a position at Air Berlin. So for me, this was very interesting. I was very motivated to work with the airline data. And here I think I took exactly the approach that Ludmila was speaking about. Just go there, and once you are given the time, so you try to find the time, right, to find time from the everyday task to do something a bit extra, and to do a bit more, to do things that you are interested in, and of course to view the problems that exist in the business. Of course, not just do something that you want just because it's fun, but see the business value behind it. This is very important. And then, as many of you might know, Berlin collapsed. So then I had to search for another role. And I made the switch to Zalando, and I'm very happy for that. And here I can say that the switch was partially due to the domain expertise. So this is something that we spoke about before. So the thing is that in Air Berlin, one of my tasks was to evaluate the campaign, promotional campaigns that we were doing. So all the promotions for like Christmas or whatever, some discounts that we had we had a lot of promotions because we often had to generate money kind of fast, and we had to evaluate the success of it. And this is something that I was doing, and the position that I was applying for at Zalando as a data analyst was exactly this. So it was in the campaign analysis team. So it was about evaluating marketing campaigns. And I think this was one of the reasons why I got the job, because it was visible that I have the domain expertise, and not only the analytical tools like how to make reports and create dashboards. This is something that I had, but plus on that, I had exactly the domain expertise that was needed. And this was great. So I could start at Zalando and contribute very fast. It's a very fast moving environment, and I was happy to also learn on the go various tools as well. So we try to automate everything. So I think my other passion, except for data science in general, is automation. So also at Air Berlin, we really automate everything, even our Excel reports, so that you didn't have to click anything. So really, you turn on the computer and the data is downloaded and it's all shown, and the email is sent to the stakeholders. And this was great. And then we had a more complex, so to say, pipeline at Zalando. And I will speak in a second. I moved to a data science role, but there we then automate things using Airflow, and this was also great. So yeah, as I said, at Zalando, I made a switch from data analytics to data science, and this is also something that I think it was easier because it was internal, and I think the leads could see, okay, what are my affinities, where are my skills, am I able to contribute more to something else? I could show interest, and this is what made it possible. At the moment, my team is no longer called A/B testing team, but now we are applied science causal inference, and we include not only A/B testing but general causal inference model. models, and we are mainly working for our marketing activity. So trying to figure out not only if there is a correlation between the engagement, let's say, of our customers on our marketing campaigns, but see the causality. So can we really see that what we see as an impact is due to the advertisement and not due to some other factors that are hidden and what we don't see. So yeah, this is my journey, and I'm happy to answer some questions if you have.
Thank you, Irena. So I would like to highlight then two things that I took from your story. So the first one is that you made the switch from the academia to industry. And this is when you leverage not only the previous technical knowledge that you had, but also you were applying to jobs that you felt like you could contribute to. And somehow you landed this position before it was even published. So that is pretty cool. It is to show that, yes, maybe the first job is about the people that are interviewing you really believing that you have the potential and that you have the motivation to be able to contribute in the team. So yeah, I would say that, yes, it's good to apply not only for jobs that you maybe have, let's say, the complete list of skills that is required, because maybe they have more than 10 items that they ask for the role. But let's say if they have 10 or 15 different items, if you fulfill more than half of them, I would say apply and see if this is something, maybe the industry that is interesting to you, or if it's the kind of business that you're interested to, for example, like marketing, then it's worth taking a shot. Because it's rare that one that gets the position has really all, you know, like 100% of the skills that are listed in the job ad.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the second thing that I took from this is when you move it from Airbnb to Zalando, you now had experience, let's say, in the industry. So you had worked for a company, and sure, you had developed more skills in the technical aspect, but you also developed a knowledge about marketing campaigns and how to evaluate the performance of those. So this is something that probably highlighted your CV in comparison to other applicants that would have to learn about all of this dynamic or the process of marketing campaigns and so on. And it could be this that made a difference for you to get hired there at Zalando at first. So this is something that we see a lot also from the AI Guild interactions that we had, from people that are transitioning from different roles to a data role, or even transitioning from academia to industry, because you already have some background knowledge that can be used and can make a difference on your profile compared to other applicants.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions came up?
Doesn't seem to be the case.
Okay. Well, you're still here, so we move forward.
Exactly. So, yeah, maybe it'll come out later.
Okay, so I have here now on slides my career timeline. So I made it brief. Well, I started again. I also studied applied math and my bachelor's. I didn't put there what I did before, but yes, I was programming or whatever it was. I was learning HTML and doing some beginning of the internet websites back in the early 2000s. And I got interested in math, so I went for applied math, but not the, let's say, pure mathematics, but applied math, even though, like you described it, is how it would in theory be applied. Yeah. But I wanted to see how you could use that in like real life scenarios. That's why after I finished my bachelor's, I didn't go directly to a master's. I applied for jobs, and I found a job as a marketing analyst. So this was a consulting company that had other businesses as clients, and always working with the marketing department of those businesses. Most of them were retail. So what we did there, or my opportunity was really to learn how the marketing campaigns worked, and also understanding how to read data that comes from both transactions, but also from the clients, like the geographical and demographical data, depending on the stores that they were buying and so on. A lot of them were physical stores. And because I was already in that domain of marketing, I started to get interested in the area of recommendations, so understanding what people are most interested in. And that was also more or less around the time that the Netflix prize was promoted. So this was initially a research kind of challenge, but it was in the realm of recommendations. So basically what movie to recommend for people that had an account at Netflix. And that motivated me to go and do a master's in computer science, because I understood that I needed to have more programming skills than what I had before. So at the time when I was working as a marketing analyst, I mostly worked in SQL, getting the data, and modeling using R. And then when I did my master's in computer science, I really learned how to program in Python. And I also learned more about distributed systems and different like software engineering practices, right? And that's how I was able to find my first job as a data scientist. So all of this was back in my home country, in Brazil, and where I was studying for my master's was in Rio de Janeiro. So I was then studying and working at the same time. And right when I finished my master's, I got a job opportunity as a data scientist, but then here in Berlin. So that's when I moved to Berlin, like 6 years ago now. And I started working as a data scientist for startups mostly. And again, focused on predictive analytics for marketing applications, or understanding customer behavior and buying patterns. And while I was doing that, maybe after 1-2 years of working here in Berlin, I also started teaching at a data science bootcamp. So my main topic teaching there was SQL. I was teaching for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And then throughout the time, I also taught other classes like Bash, Git, and Catus. And now what I am doing is, since I'm one of the founding members of the AI Guild, but since last year, I am dedicating myself full-time to the AI Guild. So working both with the practitioners in developing their careers, like what we showed in the beginning. And I'm also responsible for the Data Lift series of events, both online and next year, hopefully in person, as we do the Data Lift Summit. Yeah, so basically now the idea is to combine all my experience and knowledge, and both in being a data scientist myself and also my experience teaching at the bootcamp, to support others in advancing their careers and to be able to push for more deployment in companies. We see maybe one question coming up. Yes, so this one is the first one is for Irena. How is your PhD helpful in the data scientist role? Is it mandatory? So I can say it's not mandatory because I don't have a PhD and I was a data scientist, but maybe, so companies vary on their demands, right? So maybe Irena, you can tell from your perspective.
Yeah, so so I also don't think it's mandatory, and I have to say that when I started doing my PhD, it was not my intention at all yet to become a data scientist. So I did the PhD because I wanted to do a PhD in mathematics. So for me, it was kind of like a natural continuation of my path. And at that point, I was also not sure if I don't want to stay in academia and become a professor at some point. So I had that kind of one possibility was there. So that's why I did my PhD. But I can also say if it was helpful, I think yes, one has to, of course, look at 2 points. soft skills and the hard skills. And I think here it's also important to understand PhD in what, you know. So I think there are many people who did their PhD, let's say, in chemistry or in physics or in biology, and still end up being data scientists. So this is also quite possible, and I think of course can be helpful because they learn how to do rigid analysis, how to work with lots of data, things like this. They are in a variety of fields. In my case, it was applied mathematics, so I was working also not with data, but I was working with what we call signals. Yeah, so signal is the data, but with a particular structure and coming from a particular, so to say, place. Yeah, so having a particular structure. But image data, I mean, nowadays image processing is like it falling under data science, where image processing exists for such a long time that it's a pity to kind of make it a sub how to say field from data science, whereas it's a much larger and much older field, so to say. So that's why I think all of this knowledge that I had acquired during my PhD can be used, but it's not straightforward. And actually, I can say that now, only after, now I don't know how many years, and I don't want to count, but just these like last weeks and in the next months, I will be applying specifically my knowledge from signal processing for our data and for Zalando. And this is really cool, and I'm very excited about this because I think at the beginning, when one has finished their PhD, many people want to think, oh, okay, I did this in my PhD, I have this cool model, so now I want to find an application for this model. And I have seen this, so people coming and just stay still being in their mind, and I want to do exactly this and put it into a practice in industry. Of course, this is possible, and I think this is really cool, but I don't know if it's possible for everyone. And of course, it limits you. So when I finished my PhD and when I decided to look for a job, I really said, like, whatever the PhD, I'm starting new, you know. And for my first position, I can tell you that there were people who have just finished their bachelor studies, and it was enough for them to do the same work that I was doing. But of course, then I was always going more, and it was kind of visible. Okay, this person can actually kind of do more and things maybe differently and whatever because of the experience. But I was not using it at the beginning. Now, like years later, I was lucky to have a head of applied science in our department who actually has a similar background experience as me, and who can see the connections, you know. And he's like, oh, actually, you know, we can apply this and use this there. And I say, yeah, and I know how. Okay, cool. So maybe we can do it. So for this, of course, it's not that easy because you need the experts from that particular field to be working in the same industry where you ended up. And this is not always the case. But for me, it was also not a problem not to do this, because I kind of, in these 3 years, I got kind of fed up and I was ready for something new. Now, years later, I'm again happy to go back to it with new challenges. So yeah, I think here there is no black and white, but surely I don't think it's like, yeah, first I have to do my PhD and then I will be able to find a job. I think more likely it's the opposite, that it's easier to find it before. Of course, if we speak now about PhD, particularly in data science or PhD in artificial intelligence and so on, this is something completely different. And of course, these people are then highly appreciated and welcomed, and their PhD will count as years of experience because they work precisely in this field. And there are many in universities or research institutes who cooperate directly with the companies. Like Zalando, for example, also has one collaboration with the Zuse Institute. I know that the Lufthansa had a collaboration again with the Freie Universität. And then people who are working for them, it doesn't matter if they're sitting in the institute or they're sitting in the office in the industry, they're doing the same thing. And yeah, these of course are lucky people. I think it's kind of the best combination. I hope that answers your question. Yeah, we have one more question. Maybe this is, maybe Dânia, you know more about boot camps. It says, What is your experience with boot camps? How are the candidates? How is the work market for them? In many cases, they bring some knowledge about a specific domain, but on the other hand, much less depth in their technical knowledge.
Yes,
You
okay.
want to share your view?
Yeah, because I think that it is quite right when people come to the bootcamp with some knowledge from a previous job or some studies that they did before. Like you mentioned, it's not unusual that we have data scientists that have studied different things than math, statistics, or computer science. For example, chemistry, physics, biology. I had colleagues working with me in data science that had studies in psychology or in social sciences. So it is possible, yes. And I think that makes a difference when you apply for a job in which that knowledge is relevant, because then you can stand out from the other candidates. So for example, if you have a degree in chemistry and you are going to work for a chemical industry company, then that knowledge might come into play and you might really leverage this in the interview or on the job itself. That makes sense. And in that, in those cases, what the bootcamp offers is really some extra knowledge about the tools or the machine learning models that are used in companies. On the other hand, when people come without the domain knowledge or any domain knowledge, what they get to learn in the bootcamp are all the tools that you can apply to any knowledge that any domain that you want to apply the machine learning tools or deep learning tools. So it is not like you have less technical knowledge. I would say that, for example, the bootcamp I was teaching, it is 3 months full-time bootcamp. So you do get a lot of technical knowledge and technical deep knowledge depending on the topics that they have. So for example, there are NLP days, like maybe 3-4 days that you only talk about NLP. And I would say that that is enough confidence, gives you enough confidence to start in a job where you have to apply those techniques. I just think that the bootcamp is not the only way to get those skills. So yes, if you can afford to be paying for a bootcamp and if you can afford 3 months full-time without a paying job to take the lessons, that is great. But there are also other ways to learn the skills, maybe that take longer. I don't know, doing some not full-time course or doing online courses, or even using the time that you have free time from your job to learn those skills that you could apply. For example, like what Ludmila shared, that she could find some analysis to do here and there on her previous position and then move it on to an analyst position. Those are all possible paths. Yes, I see here we have one more comment. Recent surveys indicate that data science has a very high employee turnover rate, and job satisfactions of data scientists drop significantly. True, and I can also report that this is what we have learned through the hundreds of conversations we have had with the AI Guild members, both personal conversations, but also discussions that we've had in the meetups. So what are the red flags or warning signs that one should look out for in a company when searching for a data science role? That is an interesting one. Do you have something that you would like to share, Irena? I do have some.
Yeah, okay, maybe you go ahead and I can add then.
Okay. Well, I will start saying that I'm not proud to share this. I mean, you don't see that in my timeline, but it has happened to me, like I have seen with, as I said, in other conversations with other practitioners in the field, that I found myself in a job where I was not happy. And then by the time I was already there, you know, so it's different because you try to make your best with what you have. But then looking back, there were some red flags. So what I can share is, for example, if you're interviewing for a company and you have to ask them what is it that they are working on right now. So if they already have a data science team, how many data scientists they have, what are the problems that they're working on, what are the tools that they are using, because this is very easy, kind of simple answers, right? It's not a secret, for example, what kind of data a company has, or if they're working, I don't know, on the cloud, or if they're programming in Python, or if they're using any kind of deep learning libraries. This is no secret. They can share with you on the job interview. And this will give you a hint of, are they doing what I would like to do? Are they looking at the data that I would like to work with? Are they using the tools that I would like to work with? And it is important to understand, especially if you're looking for your first job, it is important to understand if there is already, there are already other people working there with the data, let's say with the models, or if you are looking for an analyst role, if there are other analysts. Because in the beginning, it's really hard to start by yourself and have to learn everything by yourself. So it is important, I think, if you can find a job in a team that already exists and that there are already people that can support you in like learning or picking up the tasks and progressing in your career at the job. So yes, I would say if the company doesn't have those answers in the interview, or if you don't feel confident about the answers they give you when you ask about the data they use, challenges that they are using the data to solve, or if they don't know really the tools, then it could be a red flag.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And what I can add is a slightly different not approach, but it's a slightly different thing. So now the data analyst is me. In me is questioning: is this trend only for the data science role, or is this a general trend that we observe due to, let's say, whatever, the pandemic or something else, or is it about Germany? Is it about the rest of the world? So I don't know if this is a trend that we see specifically for the data scientists. If it is, then I think the most important aspect were covered by Dânia. And if it's not, if it's more like a general trend, then I think what is very important, because I was just listening to Dânia, she said that I landed at a job where I was not happy. And I think here it maybe is the focus and when one has to search for. So what does it mean for a person to be happy at the job? And this maybe not always be only the greatest tools and the greatest, the most advanced deployed machine learning models. At the end, it's also about mutual respect. It's about the spirit of the team. It's about having a good opportunities for growth. I think this is one of the most important aspects. Also, how you can grow further in your career within this company. Are you given the opportunities? And then also just in general, like your mental health, your time, life, family balance, and the diversity. These are aspects that are also very important. And I think at least like in our company at Zalando, we try really hard to mark all these things as done. So really to make sure that everyone can feel happy at work. And if they don't, then they can raise this question, and Zalando can give resources for solving this. And yeah, I think this is very important. And I also think that now with all the opportunities, let's say work from home and work from another country and so on, so people also become a little bit more picky, if I might say, because then you know, okay, I have this opportunity, this, and so it's not maybe about pickiness, it's also about having more opportunities all of a sudden, yeah, because you're not tied to one particular place, let's say. Or on the other hand, if you got used on working from home and then you want to continue, so then if the company is not offering this, then you would also consider maybe something else. So things like this might also influence. But here, of course, there is no single truth and no single best place. Yeah, and also within one company, there might be great teams and very bad teams in terms of atmosphere. So yeah, I think here it's important to listen to yourself.
I would like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would like to add to that, because really sometimes it's not only about the company, but it's about the specific team that you are going to start working with. Yeah, that could make a difference for sure.
Exactly, but just as a last word, based from my experience and what I learned to do better with time is whenever you feel that you are on the edge, that's from happy to unhappy, or you notice something that is not working, I think the best could be if it's a company where you can speak up. So as long as you are open, as long as it is fine to raise any concerns or questions you might have, even it could be about the data, it's like, I don't want to deal with this crappy data, can we do something about it? Still, if you are given the opportunity to speak, I think this is already great, and I would then consider like staying, and then you may be given opportunities for change. But kind of at the beginning, I was not daring enough to raise some things that I was seeing, and now I feel, okay, I don't like this, it's fine, maybe I can do something to change it. And actually, most of the time it works, and people are really happy to receive some constructive feedback, to see some another point of view, to make things moving. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. So if I can sum it up, I would say that ask the questions on the interview. You can raise, like, as you were saying, you can dare to ask, because this is also part of the process, right? The company is interviewing you, and you are in some way also interviewing the company or the team where you're going to spend your time and where you want to grow also in your career, right? So that is fine, and I would say even expected. You have to show that you're interested in the job. So asking those questions, I would believe that it counts positive points for you. And then the idea of the workplace itself, some questions can also be asked during the interview, but other ways to find out are to network. So if you know a company you would like to work for, that you see an open position, you can reach out to people that already work there and ask them about it. So that is also another way to find out. You don't have to wait for a formal interview to ask questions and to find out more about the company and the culture. Yes, and I think that one of the main things that you need even to do before asking those questions for the company is asking those questions for yourself, right? Like, what is it that I want to work on, or what is it that is most interesting for me, or what do I expect from a work environment? What are the most important things for me? Because when you have those answers for yourself, then when you ask it in an interview, you know if it's matching or not. So it is like Irena was just saying, there is no right or wrong. It's depending on what you want for your career. And therefore, I guess the first thing you have to do is figure out the answers for yourself and then ask them for the company. Yes, so I don't know if we have any other questions. I think that was it, right? Yes, what I wanted to mention about the idea of the high turnover. So what I can say is that there are two things that we have observed, again, from the conversations with the AI Guild members, is that one thing is that, I guess, before the pandemic, especially, it was not hard to change jobs once you already had experience in the field. And a lot of the times it was easier to get a higher salary when moving to a new job instead of getting a raise in your current job. So I believe that it happened. I don't think that it's still the case, but I think it happened that it was easy to find a new job and to get a better salary by moving to another company. And that might contribute to the high turnover rate. And about the job satisfaction, one thing I can mention, not only from my personal experience in companies I worked for, but again, from the conversations with AI Guild members, and what motivated us to do the Data Lift event series is this gap to deployment. So a lot of the times we have experienced that we do proof of concepts or we work on projects that don't get deployed. And when they don't get deployed, what happens is that there is no real impact for the end customers, or there's no impact on the bottom line of the business, and you don't really see the impact of your own work. And that is something that contributes to you wanting to stay or not at the same job. So this is one reason that, again, is frustrating for both the people or the practitioners, but also for the companies, right? Companies want also to see the return on their investment. And that's what motivates us to do the data lift, which is about closing the gap to deployment and really pushing for more solutions being productionized. And so this is something that you might also want to ask on the interview. So I've spoken a lot. I hope I answered the questions. Maybe we go back to the slides. We have still 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, please, there's still time to put them in the chat. But if we go back to the slides, I think, Irena, you want to share a bit more about the market trends, right?
Yeah. So basically, yeah, we continue the discussion regarding the opportunities for people who want to maybe, I think it's probably this information might be useful for those who want to start career in this in data science, or who are interested into making a switch. So here I have first a slide that shows us in what function is AI used. So this is something that I want to cover because it was not covered yet. So we were speaking on one hand about the tools, yeah. So the tools, the technical things that one is having, really like what kind of machine learning models, what kind of programming languages and deployment tools and so on. This is one. Then we have the branch or the domain expertise, yeah. So maybe we say no, not the domain of the branch, yeah. Maybe this is like automobile industry or e-commerce or pharmacological industry and so on. So this is the third thing. And what comes at the end, also at the end, it's not at the end, but it comes maybe in parallel, is what is that particular tool used for within this branch, within this industry, yeah. So I can tell, for example, for us at Zalando, it's not enough to say, okay, I do machine learning at a online retailer company, right? So e-commerce business, because actually we have machine learning models working on a variety of different fields, and the fact that it's an e-commerce company is just kind of like side thing, you know. Of course, if you think about online marketing and like Facebook advertisement, of course, yeah, it's e-commerce and Facebook, this is clear. But Zalando, it has logistics, and there are many questions that can be solved with the use of AI when you speak about optimization in logistics. Then we have cybersecurity, yeah, online payments, for example. Then we have offering people possibility to pay with invoice, so like in 2 weeks. And for this, we also need estimate if we can trust these people, right? So then it's also, again, here fraud detection. Then we have legal and compliance. How do we use the data? There are things that can be also automated there. Even HR sometimes can use or is using often machine learning techniques. Then we have what else I wanted to mention, but it's not meant. I'd like, for example, for us, we also have computer vision. You would think, okay, what has computer vision? We really like 3D modeling, yeah? We think, okay, maybe this is not exactly for e-commerce company, but it can be, because if it's for fashion, then maybe we want to have the shape of the people and how is a particular piece of cloth sitting on a model that is computerly designed and not necessarily have the need to have models and photo shoot them. So as you see, the branch is not saying it all, but it is inside this company where AI is used. And often also it could be that, as you see here, most of the time it could be like just IT, if I can say so. So it's like automation of some processes on an IT level, but it can be also about cyber security, finances, and so on. And marketing is kind of interesting that marketing is just 10%, whereas here with us, with Dânia, we have like 100% because we both use machine learning for marketing. So yeah, and here you see the difference between Germany and globally. So then you can see that kind of Germany is a bit lower in percentage on cybersecurity, and on the other hand, our marketing is stronger than the global trend. And yeah, so this is an interesting thing to think about. And also when you look for a job, when you see the job description, to think, okay, am I interested in this particular product that I will be developing, about the application of it? Yeah, because that's also where you will have to understand it fully, and it's good to be motivated to know what's behind it, so then you can solve the correct problem, so to say. And here what we see is then, okay, once we know, okay, these are the tools, okay, this is the branch, or this is the domain, this is the area where we want to contribute, what is the purpose of the AI model or the AI product that is developed in the industry nowadays. And here you see a top 2 benefit, or top 2 objective, and the top high degree. It means that it was possible to achieve whatever was meant to be achieved using the tools. And we see here that the highest on the left, and on the X and Y axis, is making processes more efficient. So it's kind of boring topic, I would say, because it's like all about optimizing some things with the use of machine learning. But yeah, maybe it's boring, but it's very efficient. And then we have enhancing in existing products and services. It goes for me also about process and efficiency. What I like here is improving decision making. So for example, for me, it really is challenging me, or I like it when I know that we are data-driven company, right? And the decisions that we are making, specifically, let's say for marketing, yeah. So marketing spends are very high, and now is the question. You know, there is a saying like, I know 1/2 of my marketing spend is wasted, but I don't know which one. So the question is like, based on what do you decide where to spend in marketing? And for us, it's very important that this decision where to spend next is based on numbers, and not on not on like a feeling or some other things, but based on numbers. And then here I just want to add mention the least edge was something about labor, reducing headcount. So this is something that some people might be kind of scared of when one mentions AI, but we see that this is not a goal, and it's not easy to achieve. So yeah, this is kind of out of the scope still. And then we want to see what kind of industry are profiting the most from AI, and the opportunities that AI models are offering. So we see here the AI investment and return of investment on AI. And as you can imagine, of course, in the technology, media and telecommunications, there's a lot of investment, but then also a high return, because this is where the highest technology is used, and this is where we also can go on the cutting edges. Then also life sciences and healthcare. Yeah, maybe there is not that much investment, but there is a high investment, but not that much return. But we have to do it, I think, for the health and for the healthcare and life science. It's important that AI is kind of tried out. And then here it's also interesting to see that the lowest points has the government and the public sector, and this is, I think, particularly visible in Germany when it comes to technology and public sector. But I think here also one of the positive things of the pandemic was that they took the opportunity of automating things and making everything function semi-automatically and online. So we see some positive changes there. And if you have any questions for any of those slides, please feel free to interrupt me, or if you have any other question that was not answered, also feel free to step in, because we have only 4 minutes to go. And in this slide, I will just go very briefly. This is about what are the major challenges. So maybe this is also one of the things, like why would someone think of maybe leaving or switching? So it can be lack of management commitment, or as Dânia said, not much deployment, only staying on the proof of concept level, then lack of competencies and lack of maybe senior scientists that you can learn from. But the good thing and bad thing, maybe good for you, is that in Germany still there is a high shortage on specialists in this area. So that's why that means that there are a lot of opportunities, and everyone is looking for the most skilled people. So you just have to convince them that you are one of them, and then the next job might be yours. And yeah, finally, I think I have just one more slide for, yeah, so this is wrapping up. So as we said, keep observing the market. Now I think you have a good feeling maybe what to look for, what to ask for, talk to people. I think networking is the key, and yeah, just be open, and yeah, at the end it's about mutual match, and that's why sometimes we just have to wait for that perfect match to come. And what do we want to close up with? These are the quality standards of the accreditation procedure. So now we are going to, if you remember, we had these 3 pillars of the AI Guild, and although here now many of you are at the beginning of your career, once you are in the mid-career and when you want to grow to seniority, the AI Guild has this great accreditation program that I was part of, and I was able to become an accredited data scientist. And although this is meant for people who are more advanced, I have to say that it's really worth checking this out, because seeing those quality standards can also tell you where you want to go, or what are the things that are missing in your CV. So then once you are at your dream job, you can say, okay, I need to have this and this and this, and then I can count as a highly qualified specialist in my field. And that's why I think this is a great thing that we kind of mutually develop, and we proceed with acquiring more people and joining the accreditation procedure and applying for it, because it also brings as a standard, as we said, something that we at the moment don't have in these roles. And this is one of the things why we have this seminar, right, to answer the questions, what does it mean to be one or the other? And yes, we try to answer those questions with the accreditation procedure. So Dânia, the last words go for you. Here you can see all of us.
Yes, I want to say, yes, thank you. Or first of all, congrats on passing the accreditation standard. We are working with people that are typically around 10 to 15 years already in the field. And those are the most experienced leaders that we have in the AI Guild. So you are one of them, congrats. And yes, thank you all for joining us. I don't see any more